I'm doing one of my memories videos, and this one's a little bit different because I wanted to be able to show some stuff, and I kind of need to talk around the background a little bit. So growing up where I did in Western New York, one of my neighbors grew up with multiple sclerosis, and I was really heavily into cycling when I got into high school. Actually, about 13, 14, I really got heavily into cycling. So when I was 16, I got involved with the Multiple Sclerosis Foundation in Rochester and their MS 150, which is a 150 kilometer bike tour for supporting multiple sclerosis research. I have a few bits of memorabilia, which I'm not keeping at this point, but I want to share them on this video because this is turns out to be a really big part of my life, both cycling in general and the MS 150, because in my memory, I can barely remember actually doing it, but going back and looking through my stuff, I think I spent 5 years doing this. I know my first bike ride was 1992 when I was 16. I was supposed to do it with Nathan Parker. He wasn't able to do it at the last second, so I ended up riding alone, doing a 150 kilometer 2-day bike tour with a huge number of people, all adults, as far as I know, the youngest single rider on the tour, the only teenager whatsoever on the tour. The only person who was not an adult, that didn't have an adult with them, which was a really interesting experience for me, being the first time I did something like that in any capacity. It was an amazing bike ride, and I ended up doing it for, I believe, the next 4 years. So 5 total years. I know that 92 was my first year. I know I did it in 93. And I know that I did it in 96. And I'm pretty sure I didn't miss one of the years in between. I don't think there was ever a gap year. But towards the end, I had not been cycling anymore. So the early years, I was like really in shape and did it as a race, because a lot of people did. And in my first year, I actually finished top 10 of 10,000, which was amazing as a 16-year-old and my first time doing a race of any sort. In my last year, I was struggling to even get to the end because I had not cycled at all. I did it with zero prep. It's kind of like running a marathon. It's not as hard as a marathon, but it's kind of like running a marathon with no preparation whatsoever. I have this paper that was from my 4th year that talks about what I was doing, and because I had to go out and raise money for this, so that was a big part of this. He'd say, I'm going to ride 150 kilometers, and this is what I would carry around, and I was also part of Sonic Brass, and that this year Nate is one of the years that Nate rode with me with Sonic Brass, and we raised money that way. Now, the first year that you ride, and this is one of the reasons I want to do this, because there's memories associated with this, you get a hat, which of course I cannot find. I really can't find. That's weird. So the first year, yes. After your first year, the first year you're nothing. You just ride. And if you do a second year, at the completion of your second year, you become part of the Rough Riders Club. That means you had done it twice, so you're not just a veteran, but you've completed it 2 times. So it's pretty cool. So I got this hat. Of course, I've never worn it. These are just things that I, like, doesn't even fit my head. But these were really special to get this because it took so much work to get it. If you then did a 3rd year, you were the senior level veteran, and there's only a handful of people who ever did it 3 years, and you became a golden spoke. So this was the really senior, these are terrible hats, really senior level of the MS 150, and so I earned this while still a teenager, and as far as I know, I'm the only teenager who ever did, certainly the only one during the years I was there. Being even a Rough Rider as a teenager was a big deal. So the Golden Spokes was very special. So I was in a really elite group in having done that. And then I was in the Golden Spokes for many years, which was, the whole thing was very cool. And I have very vague memories, partially because it's a really tough ride, and they did different routes. Normally they would start around Avon, New York, and they would go to somewhere around Swain, stay at Swain, and then bike back, but they would sometimes do completely different paths. So in the early years, it was all going through like Geneseo and Groveland and Nunday, and by the later years, there was actually one year we actually went directly past my parents' house, which was really weird, up on Peoria Road, the house that just sold this year, a few months ago. So really interesting doing that over the years, and once or twice, I believe twice, Nate rode with me, and the other, I think 3 times, I did it alone. Certainly doing it alone was tough in that it was a very lonely, it was 2 days where you didn't have anyone to talk to, and even being a Golden Spoke, it was really just a group of adults who were mostly out who knew people, and then me as this teenager or very, very young on my own. So, because I did it at 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20, I believe, right? And so I couldn't go out to the bars with people. I couldn't go do things with people. I didn't have a car. I didn't have someone meeting me at the end. So it was a very different experience for me. It was a very personal one, but it was very cool as well. Um, so that was just a huge part of my teenage years, and something that I forget about and a lot of people don't know about me, that I did. And I did find some other MS-150 stuff that I just came across in some other paperwork. I'll just take some pictures of that. But the hats were really special, and I've kept them. Right, so I would have gotten that Rough Rider hat in 1993, and I would have gotten the Golden Spokes in 1994. Right, so I've had these for a long time, 26, 27 years, that I've held on to these as a memento of what I had achieved at that age, and it was very special. Now, I'm just going to show some other hats that I have that I've kept over the years that I'm not keeping. I'm not a hat collector. I don't know why I have these. They're not things I will ever wear, but I did go to Walt Disney World a few times, and I did get a couple hats that I really like, and the problem was I really liked them, so I've kept them all these years, and now why would I ever wear them? And my kids don't want them, so I'm going to donate them, because someone's going to love having Winnie the Pooh hat. So the tail, the droop, the cloud, definitely for an Eeyore fan. And I have this really cool Winnie the Pooh. You can tell what I liked, right? Bear of Very Little Brain hat. Also, like, never worn, perfect condition. And then I have this one from an earlier trip to Walt Disney World when I was younger. This Team Mickey one. And then last, not related to anything else, but from the same time period as all of that, I have this hat, which I did wear a little bit from GMI. This is the university that I went to in 1994 and 1995, the one that I went to straight out of high school, that I then dropped out of to go on to do other things. But this was my first school, and so this is the only school that I have like a lot of memorabilia from, right? Like, we made things as freshmen because it was a manufacturing school, so I have some mementos laying around that I actually made in metal manufacturing shops, and I used to have sweatshirts and stuff from it. And most of all that has gone, but like when Dominica and I were first dating, I still had most of that stuff, and some of it's still lingering, but not, I don't think the sweatshirts anywhere. But so these are my hats. These are all being donated because they're all completely new, in perfect conditions. Hopefully someone will appreciate them. They're things that it's hard for me to give up because I worked really hard to earn these. These are an important badge of accomplishment for me. The reality is no one else is ever going to understand what they are. What am I going to do storing a bunch of hats somewhere? And I know that I did it. I don't need to have this hat to remind myself of all the work that I put in. So I've shared that with you, and I appreciate you taking the time to watch this, and I hope you get some value out of it, and that it helps explain a little bit about me and my history and the things that I was doing and important to me in the mid-1990s.